This anime opens by showing a boy who is looking for someone. Not long after that, a woman was pointing a gun at someone. The victim's name was Asaka, and the boy's name was Yogiri. Then when the woman threatened to kill Asaka, she suddenly fell and immediately fainted at that place. Yogiri immediately hugged Asaka and invited him to go home. Then the scene changes. We show a woman waking a man. The man who was being woken up asked whether the person who woke him up was named Asaka. But apparently, the woman's name was Denora. At that time, Denora was annoyed because Yogiri called her name wrong. Then Denora at that time pointed to the place where other students had been slaughtered because there was a very ferocious monster attack destroying their bus. However, Yogiri's attitude looked indifferent. Then he took a mic and threw it at the monster. The wayphone monster was hit by a throw from Yogiri until it was knocked out. The monster then approached the two of them and opened its mouth, which was filled with fire. Denora, who was frightened, immediately hugged Yogiri's body. But suddenly the monster fell. After hearing Yogiri's words, the monster was suddenly killed on the spot. Denora, who woke up, was confused about what had actually happened. But Yogiri instead took out his smartphone and played games at that time. Denora, who saw this, was angry. Why was she able to play games when this incident occurred? Because of that, Yogiri immediately closed his cell phone and asked what really happened. Denora then explained everything to Yogiri. At that time, they were taking part in a tourist activity, and when their bus passed through a tunnel, they arrived in the isekai world. In the midst of the confusion, a woman appeared named Shion. She was a sage. Seeing this, their annoyed teacher immediately stood up and tried to stop the woman. But surprisingly, she immediately used her magic and made the teacher immediately faint. Shion turned out to be a very sadistic figure. In fact, to show her strengths, Shion even killed a bus driver at that place. Then Shion explained that they were all called to the isekai to become sage candidates because this world is ruled by sages. Shion then stretched out her hand and pointed her hand at all the students on the bus, which made most of the students emit light, but not all of them emitted light. Shion explains that he has implemented a system called Battle Song. For students who believe, they can see a tab that is in front of their eyes. They are then given 1 month to become stronger and become a sage. When Denora asked why she didn't have a status tab like the others, Shion answered that some people just weren't talented at being sages in this world. Shion then asked Denora to just give up. Shion even said that those who couldn't become sages would become fuel for themselves. The first mission they will carry out is only 1 hour away, and Shion says don't be defeated. After telling them all, Shion immediately disappeared. When Shion left, a student named Suguru Yazaki said to the other students, they had no choice but to defeat the wayphone monster, which would appear in 1 hour, and provide status information from the other students. At that time, Yogiri was called by his friend Takato. Then Suguru asked students who did not have status not to follow them because they would only be a burden to their other colleagues, and they would be used as sacrifices to save other students. In other words, the other students would leave the 4 of them. Even Denora, who heard this, was very surprised, because her best friend, Makochi, also agreed with Suguru's strategy. At that time, a wyvern appeared right after their friends had left that place, and then attacked 2 of Denora's colleagues when they were slaughtered there. Yogiri then thought about how to charge the battery in another world, which made Denora feel annoyed, because Yogiri was still thinking about the game. After they got out of the bus, they then saw 3 students flying towards them. Surprisingly, Denora was able to see him even though he was still too far away. Casually, Yogiri said, how about we just kill the 3 of them? After all, they have all abandoned us, which means they are the same as making us sacrifices to be thrown away. It was discovered that their purpose in coming was to turn the remaining students into zombies, and Denora said that she understood why their friends had left us. Higashida immediately threw a fireball and blew up the mountain to scare Yogiri and Denora. At that time, they also threatened Denora to become theirs. Yogiri then pointed at Higashida and said, die. At first, they laughed at those words, thinking that Yogiri was afraid of them and couldn't say anything else. But suddenly, surprisingly, Haishida died instantly at that place. Yogiri told him that he died because of his order. So when Yogiri orders someone to die, then that person will definitely die. And at that time, Yogiri asked them to obey his words. But when one of the students moved, Yogiri ordered that student to die and left one student alone. Yogiri then said that this was his power, and the people in that place were definitely dead. Haishida's friends tried to heal them, but unfortunately, the healing magic failed. Yogiri then said that his ability was to kill instantly, and if Yogiri thought of someone to kill, then that person would definitely die immediately. Even when he wanted to kill Yogiri, he could tell their intentions even though he still pretended to be kind. This made him very afraid. Yogiri then asked why they were always arrogant, just because they were given the power of this gift. He then explained everything to Yogiri, because in fact it was not their first time coming to another world, so they had actually been tasked with defeating the Demon King. Even though the time in the other world is long, the time in the real world only takes a few hours. He then begged for forgiveness so that his life would be saved. Denora, who saw this, also did not feel sorry. At that time, Higashida's friend took out a necklace-shaped object, which could make him an obedient servant. He immediately put on the necklace and made them his masters. When Denora asked him to move away, the necklace suddenly strangled him. He then told Denora that Denora could give the position of master to someone else. Denora immediately handed over the position to Yogiri. Then Yogiri said that he would not kill him. Hearing this, he felt happy because Yogiri didn't kill him. But at that time, Yogiri pointed to the forest and saw many monsters in that place. Yogiri asked him to wait there. Even though he wanted to refuse the order, because of the necklace he couldn't refuse at all. Then Yogiri also asked to leave his valuables behind and told him to cover up the secret about the two of them. Denora then asked Yogiri if this was her choice. Yogiri answered that they didn't know when she would betray them both. So Yogiri decided to leave her. Seeing Yogiri, who was still protecting Denora, at that moment Denora became embarrassed, even though in fact they had never spoken alone. Then Denora asked why he was still protecting her, but Yogiri didn't know what to answer. Denora said there must be a reason if Yogiri would definitely leave her without having to protect herself. Yogiri, who heard this, began to think that those were the right words, but because Yogiri had no reason. He started thinking because when the monster attacked, Denora hugged him. For that reason, Yogiri wants to protect Denora in the future. Tears, because of Yogiri's words, Denora's face immediately turned red with embarrassment.
私はどうなの？守ろうと思ったのはというのもなんだけどさ。なんかあるでしょ。何か心当たりが。守ろうと思ったのは。ここまでして守ろうと。なんでだろうね。私のことが気になってて。何か。壇ノ浦さんに抱きつかれ。おっぱいが柔らかかったから。The scene moves to a royal castle, where Sean is seen hugging her doll. Then he was visited by someone named Yoichi. He gave a report to Sean about the sage candidate. At that time, Cheyenne was confused about why the wyvern dragon suddenly died like that. Yoichi explained that 4 people died in the incident, and Shion assumed that they were the people who had been sacrificed. However, Yoichi said that among the 4 people, 2 of them were power owners, who heard that was shocked about the 2 people who had the power. And what was worse was that they died without any warning. For that reason, Yoichi felt certain that the cause of all this was the instant date. But at that time, Shin handed the case over to Yoichi because he didn't want to worry about it. And finally, episode 1 ends here. This is part 2 of my recap on my instant death ability is so overpowered. You can watch the previous parts with the link in the description below at the end of the last episode. The anime opens by showing Yogiri and Denora arriving at the royal castle. However, there were several guards that they couldn't understand at that time, and therefore they were told to wait outside for a while. Not long after, someone came to pick them up. His name is Masayuko. At that time, he used the same language as the 2 of them. Yogiri then asked Masayuko several things. However, because the response was not good, they then left that place. But Masayuko said that he didn't mind letting Denora stay at his place, but they immediately refused and left Masayuko. As they travel, they begin to realize that the system of this fantasy world is extraordinary with its mixture of races and humans. Suddenly, a half-human girl came and said whether they were candidates for Sage. The girl's name is Mairyu. At that time, Mairyu offered free help to them and would help them wholeheartedly.
The reason he wanted to help the two of them was because Mairyu really wanted to get to know the person who would become the sage candidate. In the end, they both agreed and took Mairyu as their guide. Then they went to the store to buy new clothes. But suddenly, everything doesn't go according to plan. This is Mairyu's trap. It can be seen that many bandits have surrounded them, and all this is because of Mairyu's actions. It is known that the bandits' goal was not just money, but they also targeted sage candidates who were not talented. Yogiri, who heard this, said that if your goal was clear, everything was clear, and because he already knew the bandits' goal, he didn't hesitate to kill them all. Initially, the bandits underestimated Yogiri and laughed at him because he did not have the gift of the sage. Even Mairyu also underestimated Yogiri and said that he would not be able to win against the bandits. Yogiri then said casually that everyone here had to die, and right at that moment behind Yogiri, the bandit suddenly died instantly. However, Yogiri's actions didn't stop there. He immediately ordered the others to half-die. But unfortunately, the half-dead effect of Yogiri alone is very terrible. Yogiri also ordered several things such as a sprained ankle, paralyzing his hands, and also paralyzing his eyes. But some of them were also killed at that time, because the effect of the Yogiri's power was too terrible. Everyone died instantly on the spot.
とりあえず今何を半分死ね右足首左腕
高藤君
眼球効率が悪いな
Seeing Yogiri's terrible power, Mairyu became afraid at that time. Then he begged Yogiri for forgiveness that he had a younger brother at home who was waiting for him to come home. But for Yogiri, that is not a reason for them to sell other people. Yogiri then ordered them both to die right then and there. But apparently there was no effect. Because of that, the two of them tried to escape from that place too. When they were too far from Yogiri, suddenly they both died in that place. Then when they wanted to leave, suddenly a guard arrived who immediately stopped Yogiri and Danira. One of the guards named Edgar asked why this could happen. Yogiri then explained that everyone suddenly fainted instantly. Edgar said that he had just seen everyone faint when they wanted to attack Yogiri. They also underestimated Yogiri and Danira because they did not have the strength like the other sage candidates. Because of this, they couldn't blame Yogiri and Danira for creating this mess. Then, one of them apologized to Yogiri for his captain's rude actions. Then at that time, Yogiri asked for directions about lodging. Not long after, they arrived at a very magnificent inn. After finding accommodation, they immediately rested. Then the scene changes. Denora, who is thinking about Yogiri, suddenly appears a ghostly woman at her place. Seeing the ghost, Danira immediately assumed that it was her brother because he had a face that was very similar to her brother. However, it turns out that the ghost is Moko Danmora, who is the wife of the founder of the Danira family. She is the guardian spirit of Danora herself. The reason Moko didn't appear in the first place was because he was very afraid of the power of Yogiri. In other words, it turns out that the power of Yogiri has an effect on even spirits. Because of that, Moko told Danira to tell Yogiri that he would not harm anything. Danira also asked Moko many questions about what he did to protect Danira. Based on Moko's explanation, he can protect Danira from any attacks other than physical attacks. Even the installation of Danira's gift was not installed because of Moko's actions. He had prevented the installation of Cheyenne's gift. But because Danira was upset at that time, Moko then explained everything to Danira. Even though the gift basically gives power, it is something suspicious that is embedded in a person's body. With the gift, a person will be under the control of the sage and including his own life. Because of this, Moko then stopped giving gifts to Danira. The next day, Danira met Yogiri. Here, Danira also asked Yogiri if they would follow the others. But suddenly, a woman named Celestina came. He had searched for their classmates' location and how to get there. Not only that, Celestina also helped with other needs and provided tickets to the capital. Long story short, they then continued their journey by train. Danira also seemed to have explained about Moko to Yogiri. The scene then moves. At that moment, we are shown Yogiri, who gives the explanation explained by Celestina previously, that her friends are heading to the ancient forest for training. And when Danira asked who Celestina really was, suddenly something happened that shocked the place. A train carriage was suddenly destroyed, and at that moment, Yogiri immediately protected Danira.
ふよかなお腹に埋まりながら的に場所取らんしこの怖いし君の方に行けばいいでしょ加藤君にも見えてるんだよね
で以来ずっとね
この辺りにみんながいろんなことまでわかるってのあ、そうかはい
Then the scene changes to show Edgar.
It turns out that among all of them there is one who can survive Yogiri's attack. Because at that time Yogiri only blinded his eyes, this made the person unable to be interrogated. Then a sage took out its eyes and gave healing to the creature. The sage is named Len. However, because he didn't get any effect, Len immediately took out his vampire fangs and bit his prisoner. His captive then turned into his bloodline, but still he couldn't get him the information he wanted. While the others were thinking about Yogiri, a hero suddenly arrived at that place, but the scene then shifts to the train. At that time, information was heard saying that there was a sage who was facing the aggressor in that place. And at that time, there was an aggressor who was fighting against a sage. The battle looked very fierce. Then Danara said to Yogiri, why not just get rid of them? Because they were blocking Yogiri's journey. But Yogiri explains that that means he can kill everyone who gets in his way, including people who are walking in front of his face. Yogiri then emphasized to Danoa, even though he could kill everyone instantly, he would not kill people who had done nothing wrong or were not targeting him. But suddenly, an aggressor appeared right in front of them. And at that time, a sage then chased him while furious. The sage is named Santaru. Then he launched an attack on the aggressor, without paying attention to the people around him.
一定の基準を設けて攻めてるわけじゃないから気にし。
お、ごめん。
逃げてんじゃねえ。ほら。
The scene then moves to where Len is seen, who is currently fighting a hero. When the hero launched his attack, Len received the attack directly and injured several parts of his body. However, because he is a vampire sage type, all his wounds can be healed directly. Len then asked the hero why he launched an attack on a sage, because a hero's job is to destroy the Demon King. The hero's name is Ian. Ian seemed very angry with Len, because he knew all the bad plans the sages had. At that time, Ian immediately launched a big attack, using the Holy Sword Cartina to create a big explosion in the castle. At that time, Ian was sure that Len had died there. However, the next scene shows Yogiri again, and you can see that many people are dead around Yogiri. Then Yogiri asked the sage who had previously launched the brutal attack, because they were also affected by the attack. However, Santoro instead behaves impolitely in front of Yogiri and deifies himself as someone who must be respected by everyone. Because he was annoyed by Santoro's actions, Yogiri killed him instantly. The aggressor who saw that then said to Yogiri, there were several things he wanted to talk to Yogiri about. Then the scene changes to show Len, who turns out to be still alive. Len also says to him whether your lover's name is Adele. Ian, who heard this, was shocked because Len was still alive, but Len said to Ian that he couldn't possibly die from such a trivial attack. Hearing Len's words, at that time Ian asked to be killed because he failed to kill Len. But because Len had no intention of killing the hero, he immediately threw him away from that place.
アリエル。
そのアリエルというのは
どうやって逃れた。
どうせ死なないのだ。そのくらいで死ねるなら
殺せ。
逃れてなどいない。殺す気も起きない。
On the other hand, Yogiri was negotiating with Aggressor. At that time, Aggressor asked Yogiri whether there was anything he could give Yogiri to repay Yogiri's good deeds. Yogiri then answered him, "Can you help me to return to my old world?" At that time, the aggressor explained that he only knew how to return to the aggressor's own world, but bringing them was still impossible because it was not the aggressor's original form. Plus, Yogiri was also said to be very dangerous by the aggressor, which made it impossible for him to take Yogiri. Because of this, Mako also gave them advice. The scene then returns to showing Eldgard, who at that time was shocked to see the sage Sanryu dead in that place. We are then shown to a place where Sage Shion and other sages are discussing. They talked about Yogiri and Danara, who managed to kill a sage named Santaru. They were then confused because Yogiri's power was probably instant death, while Santaru should have defense immunity from instant death. For the sages, their goal is to expel the aggressors, but they also cannot ignore people who are capable of killing sages. However, Shion didn't allow anyone to dare touch the person who had become her sage candidate. But Shion told Len she didn't mind if Len wanted to get rid of the darkness. And after that, Shion then disappeared from that place. Then Len immediately summoned his aide, Misayuki, to lead the attack on Hanabusa. That was because ordinary troops could not possibly survive. Misayuki, who heard that, said that Len only wanted Hanabusa's destruction. But at time, Len was just silent. The scene then returns to showing Yogiri. At that time, they were seen resting somewhere and separated from the aggressor. Suddenly, Moko came back and gave the katana to Denora. The katana was obtained from the robot's body part. And finally, episode 2 ends here.
Thank you so much for staying on this channel and watching our videos. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel so we can keep you up to date with our latest content. See you in the next video.